Welcome to the NBA roller coaster. You know, it's one thing to say, so how about starting next season on December 22nd? It's another thing to actually make that work. And with this Friday as the deadline for the league and union to come to an agreement on so much of this, the next 3 days are going to be full of ups and downs, loop-de-loops, and all the rest. Like, how's this for a twist? Yesterday, we got Danny Green on the Ringer NBA show proclaiming that if the league really does start next season, 10 weeks after the NBA Finals, he doesn't expect LeBron James or several of the other Lakers vets to show up for the first month. I totally get where Danny is coming from on this. I also have to say, if the NBA is handing out championship rings the night of December 22nd, I would expect LeBron James will not only be accepting his ring, but will be playing in that game. And personally, I really like the overall idea of such a quick turnaround. All last month, when NBA owners kept indicating they wanted to wait to start until they were allowed to have a meaningful amount of ticket-buying fans in the stands, I kept saying on this show that, well, I want a pony, but that wasn't happening anytime soon either. And at some point, it becomes dangerous to the health of the sport to just keep waiting and waiting for medical advancements that could be 6 months away or more. By the way, after I said that, several of you out there actually offered me a pony, which is sort of missing the point, but also delightful, so thank you. Anyway, I think it is great that owners seem to have come to terms with the fact that, like so many of us, they are just going to have to adjust their expectations for this year. There will be less money to go around. The work conditions won't be ideal. At some point, you just dig in and do it. Avoiding your finals running into the Olympics is smart. Avoiding your finals running into football season is smart. Preserving Christmas as the NBA's day is smart, not just generally in the long term, but specifically this season, when starting in late December will reportedly prevent the league from losing additional hundreds of millions in revenue. Plus, you get the fun music. For more of 2/3 of the league's teams, the ones that didn't go deep in the playoffs, it won't even be that short of an offseason. Of course, just because something is a good overall idea doesn't mean it isn't going to be super complicated. There is the negotiation with the players, who are likely going to be asked to put up to 40% of their salaries in escrow to balance out the projected loss of revenue. There's figuring out how many games the season would be. 72 is a popular number right now, but could that change? And how is the league going to handle positive COVID tests if it plays outside a bubble? We've seen non-bubble leagues like the NFL already have to reschedule games, and that's with the benefit of 6 days between games and properly testing and containing outbreaks. The NBA would be attempting several games a week with players who sweat and breathe all over each other, not in a giant open-air stadium, but in a closed arena. And what about the states where the local government does allow, say, even just 500 fans in the building? Are players going to be okay with breathing all of their air, too? There's also the issue of the calendar leading into the December start. Right now, the NBA draft isn't scheduled until November 18th, and free agency not until after that. If training camps start December 1st, it is hard to make the math work on the time needed for players coming from far away to quarantine. And if a team does have a run of COVID rip through the building, there's no pad built into training camp for players to get back onto the court in any kind of game shape, not to mention the threat of actual serious illness. It's a lot. So leave your sunglasses and hats at the turnstile, buckle up, and get ready for quite a ride. All right, Matt, so how do you think players like LeBron, say, as Danny Green pointed out, will handle the shortened offseason if training camps really are back on December 1st?
I don't think they'll like it. I think it's too fast, and I'm not looking at dollar signs or revenue for owners or anything. I'm looking at players, and not only was last year a unique situation physically, emotionally, but it was mentally draining. Yeah. You know what I mean? And people don't take that into account too often when you think about athletes. Those guys were mentally exhausted along with physically exhausted. So I think to start this fast after the season just ended is a bad move. I understand you want to, ratings might be down. You want to capture that Christmas Day game. But to me, it's more about having your star players ready to play for the long haul. And I think if you start too early, you're going to risk injury with a lot of these guys that had to make a long run into the playoffs.
Yeah, when money faces off against purity of the game, money wins, and money is going to win this too. LeBron and Anthony Davis are going to show up on Christmas or December 22nd. Whether they play or not, is the question. And I do think there will be some load management. There'll be some easing into the season. There will be some straight up ugly basketball for the first 2 months of the season. And forget about all, and that's even leaving aside all the complications with the virus that, Rachel, you talked about in the monologue and the schedule and all of that. But look, I mean, some players haven't played already in 7 months. Some of those guys are probably in great shape. Keep doing what you're doing. Some of those guys, maybe they got out of shape. They got to start ramping up. It's going to be different for each player. It stinks for the teams who won the championship or got to the finals in the bubble. It is a quick turnaround, and everyone's just going to have to deal with it because money is going to win this argument. That's the bottom line.
Well, the thing to remember, too, is it's not all players. And look, the bottom 8 teams in the league, Matt, were asked to sacrifice, right? They did a bubble without them. And those 8 teams were told, hey, sorry about this. You're just not going to play for maybe up to even a year. Now, it's not going to turn out that long. But still, we're leaving you out for health and safety reasons. And this is going to go on without you. Well, now it's the top 8 teams that are basically going to be asked to sacrifice.
And that's who most likely you're going to see a majority of those top 8 teams back in the playoffs. I think the only teams that got left out that are going to be in the mix here are Golden State and Brooklyn. But outside of that, to me, like I said, I think you want to err on the side of caution when it comes to this. And I understand what Zach is saying. I mean, money rules the world, not only in sports, but just the world in general. So money probably will possibly win. But I agree, if they do come back before the turn of the year, it's going to be a lot of management. They possibly could play on the opening night because there's so much energy and emotion.
Or
but
Christmas,
then we're going to start complaining about the load management, starting with some of these guys that had to make these runs. So it's a tough situation. You know, I wish them the best of luck trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and that is going to be tough if we get into January and the Tuesday game is 2 teams playing without stars. And it's not going to look quite how it looks in the bubble, right? Unless every arena builds those huge video boards. No matter how dramatic you make the lighting, you're going to see empty seats. You're going to see some of the stuff we've seen in the other sports that make it just feel kind of more rec leaguey than really official. So they're going to have to work out a lot. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.